Alright everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sir Taco's Talk About Transformers, whatever the show is called, I forgot, it's been a while. Today we are going to be looking at the leader class, apparently, Blitzwing figure from the Legacy line. I did show off the box already, so it's not here, and I showed off the box of a bunch of people that I'm going to be reviewing, so that's not going to be part of the video, so we'll move right into the vehicle mode. The first one here, which is the jet mode. Here he is from the top. You got silver paint on the nose cone, red transparent plastic here for the cockpit area, the window anyway. Then you've got the yellow paint and the Decepticon logo here on what will become the chest. I can't tell if that's rubbing off or if that's just how it was, but and you've got instead of pulling him all the way up to the camera, there we go. Now that'll look a little better. Yeah, it looks like it might have been rubbing off in the middle there, because if you come down here to the wings, that one's all filled in, but this is just an outline, so it's hard to tell. You've got some silver paint in here for these vents and whatnot. It's going to be a waist and hip skirt area. You've got those aforementioned Decepticon insignias on the wings. Some more yellow paint here on the front of the wings that they did not put here for some reason, which would have made them look a little more, cohesive all together and all that. But lots of nice molded in details there. You've got silver for these tail fins. You've got the thrusters coming down the back. From the back, they are molded into cones, as they should be, no half cones or anything. And then you've got this. We'll talk about this bottom part in a little bit. We'll ignore it for now. We're just going to talk about the purple. Going around to the side, doesn't look too bad. Got this sort of tank mass under there, but that's what it looks like in the cartoon. It's got some form of tank mass there, and just kind of a clean underside. Then you've got the fake cockpit on the underneath, which we'll talk about later also, and then a little bit of purple paint around that red. It definitely a different purple than the plastic they've used, and it's a lot more noticeable on the camera than it is on the actual figure, but it is noticeable, but it's so small of an area that I generally don't pay attention to it, because it's not peppered and dotted throughout the whole figure. It's literally just whenever there's that red plastic for the cockpit area. Here he is from the underside. You have this fake cockpit down here. Again, we'll talk about it in a little bit. You've got a landing gear here in the front. You do have some visible head syndrome, but I turned his head around, so there's no visible face syndrome. Like people are always like, oh, you can see his face. Well, I can't, because I turned it around. Seems simple enough, but here's the rest of the chest detailing under here. This will kind of fold over like a space seatbelt, if you will, and then you've got the turret hanging out down here with another Decepticon symbol. And this is how he's supposed to be in his jet mode. In the landing gear, it doesn't roll or anything. It's kind of funny, and to be honest, I forgot it existed for a little bit, because the way I configure the bottom is he stands like this, just fine. He'll sit. If you take the landing gear away, he does this. But what I do is I actually take this on its hinge. There's a hinge in here. It's on. We'll detail. Oh, hopefully I'm not elbowing the camera and thumping the whole thing, or not the camera, the microphone. We'll take it on the hinge and push it forward. And I think that actually kind of cleans up, makes it a little more, I don't know, satisfying from the side to me, instead of just a giant, like, oceanic shelf of nothing. Then you run into this, it just kind of eases down a little better. And then he can actually still stand like that without the landing gear. Just fine. He'll sit. And then, now, we'll go ahead and talk about this whole business here. The turret I can live with. I can't remember which video it was in, but someone had shown a clip of Blitzwing, and I swear to Primus himself that I saw a tan mass on the bottom of the character in the show that looked like it would have been the turret, such as it is here. So I can live with that. These pieces of tank cancer here, these specifically, I could not live with very well. This is my least favorite mode of the whole thing, and it's just because of these, but I did watch some animation clips trying to find the one so I could take a picture and show people that this was here, and in those I saw that while much thinner in the shape of the upper wings, there were little tan things on the side down here. If you've seen like the G1 toy or even that Legend Scale one, I want to say McFan's Toys did, I could be wrong, don't quote me, they had the little thin panels there, and this might be like they're trying to say that's what these are, so slightly more forgivable for me. Other people probably won't care, but like I can see why it is. It's just basically me trying to come to terms with this jet mode without hating it forever. I almost never have it in jet mode unless I have it out and about and I'm just like, oh, it makes no sense for a tank to be flying through the air, so I make it an airplane and whoosh it around. I've got a 5 and an 8-year-old, so I'm just, people ask, oh, I'm entertaining my kids. I'm certainly not entertaining myself. No. Anyway, I've babbled on enough about this jet mode, so we'll go ahead and zoom back out and take a look at some size comparisons. Does it zoom back out? There we go. And then we will move on to the first transformation. Alright, starting off with size comparisons here, things are going to look very familiar at first, and then they are going to deviate, and we'll kind of explain that when we get back in before the transformation, but enjoy. Here is Core Class Starscream from, what was this, Kingdom? I want to say it's Kingdom Starscream. I could be wrong, don't quote me on that. Here he is with the slightly too big Legends class Starscream mold, or Seeker mold I should say, Starscream flavor, from a New Age that was KO'd and upscaled. Here he is with the Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Deluxe Class Ratchet figure. Here he is with the Siege era Sound Blaster figure, basically your Siege Soundwave mold, but black from this angle because you can't really tell that the bigger chest is there. So here's your Voyager class comparison. And here for a leader class comparison, with your Blitzwing you have the leader class Tyrannicon X, aka Rexy from Jurassic Park, aka Beast Wars Megatron mold from Kingdom. And that's it for our size comparisons. Oh no, wait, there's gonna be one more. Hold on a second. Ah yes, who could forget like the only other triple changer I have that's not a combiner? Here he is with the Siege Voyager. Here he is with the Siege Voyager class Springer in his helicopter mode, his flight mode. And I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I think that both of these are their worst modes respectively. In Blitzwing's case, it's literally the weaker mode. And in Springer's case, I just think that I like the other two better. The tail of the helicopter in this mode, for him, kind of drags it down a bit. It's too thick towards the helicopter and too small in the back. Like the fin is just really small to me. He looks kind of like the front of him needs a diet and the back needs a sandwich. But either way, there you have that comparison, and that's it for the size comparisons for Blitzwing's jet mode. Alright, and that is it for size comparisons part 1. I was always talking about how I don't get a lot of reuses of molds in. I like the engineering of figures, and I don't like repeating it, so I was just like, do I have a mold in each size category that I do that I do size comparisons with that I could use for size comparisons. So that way you guys have an idea of vehicle and robot coming from basically the same place but not using the same toy, so I don't have to transform it every time. The answer was yes, kind of. I don't have a counterpart to Legends Optimus Prime, which is why Prime Jr. wasn't in this. And Soundwave to Sound Blaster aren't one-to-one because it's the tape deck version, but the robot is basically the same size and shape as Soundwave / Sound Blaster's robot, so I figured I could get away with it. Anyway, with that tangent out of the way, we'll go ahead and start transforming Blitzwing into his tank mode. So what I'm going to do first is open this flap down here with the fake cockpit on it, and go ahead and fold this in, close it up. It's really annoying getting it out the other way. You can see where I've worn the paint down trying to get it out, and it was, see, now I was able to bump it up where I can get to it, kind of. There, I was able to get that out of there, but when I was transforming it earlier for this section of the review, I had to take his weapon and get it out. So I took his sword and went like this, and I just realized I didn't go over his weapons. So we're actually going to rewind slightly and go over his weapons, his accessories, if you will. He comes with 2 of these rifle looking guns. No paint on these. They're molded quite well from both sides. They look pretty good in the jet mode. I generally tend to store them, let's see, this way, yes. I'll store them this way on the sides with that orientation. You can do with them what you will. The sword, we'll go over the sword. It is bendy and it is painted silver, which I don't like. I wish it was just solid plastic and it was purple. 2 different kinds of purple maybe, but purple. So I don't really use this at all, but if you wanted to store it, you could like put it on here, maybe, if it'll cooperate. So you could put it on there, or one thing that I had been doing was lifting up one of these flaps, and I would put it down here and cover it up with the flap, so you've just got the sword there. You could put it on the side instead of the gun if you wanted. You can. I just don't really like weapon storage on this character in the plane mode very much either. I much prefer the storage in the robot and slightly in the tank mode. So there you go. Weapon storage, and he does come with 2 of these. Hooray! I missed a couple of weeks or months or what it has been, and I've already forgotten how to do this. And by this I mean the whole thing, not just transforming Blitzwing. So we'll fold in the nose cone and shut that panel. Again, come around here to the back, and you've got several points where this cancerous tank mass is attached. There's 2 here, there, and 1 on the other side. There, you've got this big old chunky tab and that slot that it goes into, and then you've got right here and right here there is a tab slot combination. You've got slots and tabs on both sides, and so after we do that, we can untap the front too. You've got tabs and slots combination, and we'll just angle all of this up out of the way for now on this big old purple double hinge. There's a purple one and a tan one. Remember that, because I don't remember if I'll call it out. So we can expose all this stuff and get this stuff transformed, because this stuff is all pretty much the way it needs to be, other than putting it into the tank mode. The fuselage, this whole jet is what transforms. This, minus the fact that the nose cone is away, is a pretty nice jet. And then they added that to it. Anyway, back to the transformation. We're going to untab the assemblies here with the tank mass from the side, and what it is there's slot here, tab here. We're going to move them forward, and what's going to happen when we do that is that this slot on the other side is this big old one that's just going to go around here. So we're just going to snap that in, gentle snaps. Move this one forward, snap that in, and then flop this back forward. For these leg areas, go ahead and open them up. Oh, real quick, I always forget to do this. Come under here and fold these bits missing the yellow paint back, so that way they don't get in the way, and they are supposed to be folded. We'll go ahead and fold the wing up, and then I don't know why, but it seems to help if I fold this in first, or I leave this unfolded. That's it, I can't remember what I'm doing. And then there's this big old slot here that's going to go over these two tabs, because this is two different parts. This all comes out later on. So push that down. There are stress marks here from me pushing on the front on top of this hinge, and that's not where you want to push, because I'm stupid. Don't be like that. Push on the actual tab section, then fold this down and kind of clip it in after it's already been tabbed. For some reason, when I do it in the correct order, where this is already folded, and I try and squeeze this down, it doesn't want to go in. You see there's a gap there, but if I open this back up and I push it down, then close this off, there's still a gap there. So my point's not been made. I hate it. Hate it when I look like I don't know what I'm talking about on the camera. Anyway, put these back together, fold the tail fins up, and then you've got that section ready to go. We're going to pull this part back down, and we're going to use the same tabs and slots as we did in jet mode to connect this whole area back on. Same thing with the front. This is just going to tab back in here. We'll leave this down for now. And what we're going to do is, there is a double hinge system here in the wing, and we're going to snap this hinge closest to the body all the way down like that, and then we're going to make sure that this tab goes into the slot on the wing bit like that. And then, hold on, let me open this back up. There is a tab here, like a hook tab almost, that's going to go into this slot here on this assembly. I usually try and line this section up first, and then I forget to do that, and I can't figure out why it's not lining up. So that's why I'm trying to show it off in the correct order on camera. Fold this little fake wing out that had nothing to do with the jet mode, as you saw, and just fold it around. It kind of sits in place. It doesn't look super great. It doesn't tab in super great. Just this area of tread. The rest of it looks pretty good actually. But we'll go over that in a minute. So we'll do it on this side. I'll show you from the back, the hinge, how it all folds out, snaps down, close that in. Then go ahead and get that hooked in underneath, like so. Then we'll fold this flap down, fold this around, and snap it shut. Then go ahead and just push up on this turret to help you open this panel. It's not super sturdy tabbed in this configuration, but you go ahead and fold the turret out. It's on kind of like a soft, soupy ratchet almost, and then go ahead and push this in, and at least on mine, that's in there pretty good now. So the turret like keeps it from tabbing it all the way. So you gotta actually get your fingernail in there and unpop it, because it's not loose anymore. And with that out of the way, there you have the tank in tank mode. We'll go ahead and take a look, and then hopefully remember to put the accessories on this time. But starting off with the front of the tank, it's the underside of the jet, but this stuff got moved forward. Not a lot of new details revealed in this section itself, other than you've got these nice kind of brown, gray, brown paint on the treads just to kind of make them pop. I do appreciate it. This tab obviously isn't painted, and some people might think that's distracting, but what's more distracting, this being painted and the paint rubbing off from it having a tab in, or it just not being painted from the get-go, so it looks cleanly unpainted instead of scratched complete hipple and hiffle and heckle and all the words I can use to not swear, although this is definitely after 10 minutes into the video. So we'll go ahead and keep sweeping around here to the back. Same thing as the jet. but now it's got a nice warm blanket of tank around it. And then you've got the turret here, the hole in the back so the turret can fold around, which makes sense. On the other side, same deal going on. And then from the front again, and there's some paint here too, just kind of picking out those areas. And here he is from the bottom. You've just got the jet. It's nice and neatly folded up. It's not too intrusive to the tank mode. It's mostly tan on the top except the front and the back, which is cartoon accurate as far as I'm aware. And then you've got the top here for the tank. It looks really good. This hinge is a little weird, but considering what it does, I'm okay with it. You've got the Decepticon badge we saw when it was upside down in jet mode. Then you've got the fake cockpit here in the front of the tank, which only exists because this is here in the screen model. Apparently, I was like, why is this even here when I saw the images of it originally? I thought it was really stupid and I didn't like that it didn't fold away. And then I learned that it actually was screen accurate, and I was like, oh, okay, well, good job. And then I learned that it wasn't the actual jet cockpit, and I'm just like, well, I guess, but I still can't fault it because it should be farther back in as far as I'm aware, I will admit that, but it's supposed to be there. The face isn't showing because I turned the head around like, you know, the mad scientist that I am, thought outside the box and turned the head around. Now you can't see his face. It was so difficult to come up with that. I racked my brain for hours. But there he is in tank mode. We'll zoom out here so we can take a look at his tank articulation. He rolls on the rolly wheels because he has wheels as a tank but not as a jet. They're just little tan plastic things. No moving treads, of course. This is a mainline figure after all, but he does roll. His turret does do the full 360 swivel, and then thanks to this stoop you can get like one good upward bend, but it's not fluid, like you can't stop halfway through anywhere you want. If you get it perfectly balanced on that, you can get it like that, but then you tip it too far one way and it's gonna thoop into place. So, you know, you've got like 3 stages. You've got the click, the halfway, and the click, and then it starts bumping into the flap. So that's basically it for his tank articulation, unless you want to be like, oh look, that's totally like an engine and we're doing repair work through that hinge, I guess, if you want. For weapon storage, I just put the guns on the side like so. The reason I put them like this is because if I want to transform them with the weapons on, I'll leave them on this flap until the last second, and if you have them this way, this will swing right past here and clip in like it's supposed to. But if you flip them the other way, then worlds collide. So just so you know why the guns are upside down on the tank. For me personally, you can do whatever you want. It's your toy with your accessories. We'll go ahead and put his other gun on the other side for the same reason, in the same place. And then for the sword, I generally just stick it up here. The sword I usually don't keep around very much because it looks kind of wonky and it's rubber and I don't like it. But there he is. That's all his accessories. I'm slapping the microphone again. That's probably going to happen a lot because my table with my mic and my comparisons is a little closer to the shooting surface than it usually is. So trying to fit my hand around the camera but not slap the mic is difficult. Alright, so we're going to take a look at size comparisons part 2, and I just realized I'd never cut between the transformation and this, so that's going to be awkward to put music on. Don't know how I'm going to do it, but we'll figure it out. Anyway, size comparison part 2, as long as I'm not forgetting anything, and I don't think I am, coming up now. Alrighty, and starting out size comparison part 2, here we have him with the Core Class Starscream from Kingdom. Here we have him with the upscaled KO Legend Size New Age Seeker in Starscream flavor. Here he is with the Deluxe Class Studio Series Bumblebee movie Ratchet. Here he is with the Siege Sound Blaster Soundwave mold Voyager class scale comparison. And last but not least, here he is with a fellow leader class for your comparison. This is the leader class Tyrannicon Rex, aka Rexy, aka Leader Kingdom Megatron mold. And if I don't say so myself, that actually doesn't look terrible, I think, for a little tank next to a dinosaur. The tank's probably too small, but I like the way it looks. And last but not least, for your vehicle comparison, here he is next to the Siege Voyager class Springer for that triple changer flavor. This is how I have the weapons configured on him. If it looks weird to you, it's just the way that I like to do it. It's all together, it's all solid. I want to say I went over it in the review of this guy that I did, but I can't remember, in case you're wondering what it is with this rack on his back. But there you have him next to a triple changer. He is basically a chunky Voyager, but he does have more mass on him than the Siege Springer does, and other than the travesty that was the underside of the jet, he does have more engineering in him, I feel, than Springer does. So that's kind of going towards that leader price point a bit, but that's about it. We'll get into transformation, and hopefully this time I remember to cut it before I go into the description of the robot. Alrighty, that was fun. Two size comparisons, and we're not even at a robot yet. Oh, there goes one of the size comparisons falling and making noise. Sound blaster, of course. He would make noise. Anyway, we're going to remove these weapons here and put them off to the front. People usually say off to the sides, but in reality, for me, it's off to the front. It's like just out of view. Anyway, moving on to the robot transformation, we're going to go ahead and tuck this turret away. It's probably quicker to go from tank to jet to robot, but I kind of wanted to go in order of how much I like them, because it is tank to, or jet to tank to robot in the order I like them. I think the robot's the best and the jet is the worst. So we're going to pop this up on the gray double hinge. Well, we don't have to do that yet. We're going to leave this down on the beige, not gray, tan, beige double hinge. What we're going to do is actually going to reverse Uno card the transformation on this. So we're going to go ahead and fold these up. We're going to fold the wing down this time though, and then we'll go ahead and pop that in and untab back here. I can't stress enough, don't forget to tab this in. It'll save you some headaches if you remember to tab that in. And then we'll take this double hinge and collapse it in. Plus, before I didn't show it, because I knew this was coming up, but there is a tab on the hinge that goes into that slot there. So go ahead and make sure that clips down. Go ahead and do it on this side, and I won't have to rotate the turret this time because I'm not going to show you the tab on the hinge. I can just clip it in there, both done. Alright, then what we're going to do is I like to rotate these out of my way and just work on his lower his lower body, his legs. So we'll go ahead and pop this up with those two tabs and slots that we've mentioned a few times now. Open this up and go ahead and flop this forward like we're going back to jet mode. Go ahead and split his legs. I fold these down at least halfway because they'll get out of the way of these wings. We're going to fold those open, and then we're going to pull this up. This is one half, and this is another half of that tab I was talking about earlier, just to prove to you it is two different pieces. So what's going to happen is there is a tab here that's going to go into this slot right here by my middle finger there. So we're going to tab that in, and then there's this tab here on the back that's going to go into the slot on this side of the hinge. So we're going to make sure we tab it in two places, and I believe the back goes first and then the front for me. So tab, tab, that was a little blurry. We'll undo it, do it again. So snap, snap. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and fold this back in. This might be where, and then with this one, for the robot, it's going to tab up on this tab at the top here, slot tab, so you want to push on the top. You just want to push where it's tabbing and nowhere else. And then fold this in, tuck it away. Same steps on this side, fold it open. A little faster this time though. Uncrinkle the leg, snap, snap, fold this over, tab it in, pushing on just the tab so you don't unnecessarily stress anything. And then per the actual official transformation and stuff, these wings are going to be folded down all the way, so you could have done that from the get-go, but I like to fold them back, so we'll actually see him like that after we show the official transformation. So you want to fold open the feet and not explode the backpack everywhere, then fold these down because there's a little notch here that goes into a slot in the side of his foot. So go ahead and open up the feet, and then again, tab, notch, clip. And that is his legs fully transformed. So we'll come up here to the top and work on his arms. We're going to pull this out a little bit so we can rotate that back. Then we can rotate it around. Push on the tab in tank mode where the side came together to start rotating his hand out. Get his hand all the way out, and then rotate this panel to the bottom, and then this will fold around and cover up that gap a little. It's not perfect, but it does cover it up. And so I'm going to leave his arm out, but I'm going to straighten the shoulder out is what I did there. So we'll go ahead, pull this up, rotate this out to the back, fold out the hand, fold the arm, or fold this panel, dang it, fold this panel around, rotate this to cover the gap, and then straighten the shoulder out so it's out of the way. Now what we're going to do here is pop the chest open. There's his face. Now we can see his face. We're going to rotate the face out. You always want to rotate the face through here because the turret, it's not going to fit. That's how you can tell. So we'll rotate that out and then plug this back in. It's two little tabs on two little slots on either side. A slot and little slots. And you tab that in, rotate the head around. It's a very big step, very hard to do to hide that face, but you gotta do it if you want to hide the face. Then this hinge on the back, this part of the hinge here is basically going to fold in on itself like that. And then, like I said earlier, this is going to come down like a Space Boy seatbelt and finish off that chest detail. And then you can put his arms down, coming around to the back. You can rotate the turret around, and then you've got these two tabs here that are going to plug into those two pegs. That is how they were plugged in jet mode originally, but I didn't point it out, so I'm pointing it out now. And then this doesn't plug into place, it just kind of hangs into place due to gravity and its own weight and all that. And there you have a fully transformed Blitzwing in robot mode. Let's go ahead and raise the camera a pinch so we can see him in all of his glory. And we'll go ahead and remember to cut this time and get into some detailed descriptions. Alright, continuing after the cut, we'll go ahead and zoom right in and we can start taking a look at Blitzwing. I love his head sculpt. It looks very Blitzwing with the big red hater blocker shades, and you've got the helmet with the little red on the top. The face is painted in a nice silver. All the silver has that nice metallic fleckle paint to it. Then on the chest, you can see here, you've got a little bit of paint rub on the silver, and some on that Decepticon symbol, definitely saying some of that rubbed off. But I mean, I was planning on getting this guy by the 4th of July and then reviewing it then for like a 4th of July review. Just be like, oh yeah, 4th of July, America, you have tanks and jet fighters and guns and explosions, and when did this set and start describing Michael Bay films. But I unfortunately didn't get him until after, and then everything went crazy sideways at work, and here we are. He's got a purple stripe on the shoulder with that gray that I pointed out earlier, just kind of giving his shoulder some life. You know I love some color breakup, which this guy has enough of, because you've got the tan going into some tan with some gray down here. Could have used a paint accent on the forearm, to be honest, but I'm not going to complain too much. And then you've got the details that I pointed out in jet mode with the silver and the painted vents. His thighs are completely painted in silver, which is really nice. So there's some of that leader budget going there. You got some of that fully painted stuff. He's not hollow anywhere or anything. So, you know, that's some of that budget too. And then you've got the legs pretty plain down here. Could have liked some sort of paint down here too. And then you've got the feet with the correct, accurate forward-facing fins, which I don't like. So I'm actually going to fold them back right now and show off. This is how I like to have it. I just think it looks nicer, less, you know, that looks kind of weird to me personally. If you like it, then that's fine. But if you don't, you can have it like this, or you can have it like this. It's whichever way you want, but I'm folding them back. And that's a perfect excuse to go off the side. You've got the Jet Mode Decepticon wing symbols there on the side of his leg. Whether you have this folded forward or back, you can still see it. Got some details on the underside of that flap that needed yellow paint in Jet Mode. Side of the arm, you got some combat ports, which I have stopped talking about almost exclusively, but they are still there in a lot of these legacy figures, and some studio series figures still have them. And then on the back here, you've got the turret. You can have it small like this, or if you really wanted to, you could flip the turret around to rotate and have a giant long compensation turret if you wanted. There you've got the back of the wing. These wings, if you haven't clocked in by now, are just for detail and robot mode, so they're just an extra flap to give them some wings, while the real wings are tucked into the legs. So that's nice for the robot, but weird for the jet, and the tank doesn't really bother. And then down here you've got some details on his back skirt area, I'm gonna call that, and his backpack is actually really small. You've got the tank tread wings with the turret, and that's G1 accurate Blitzwing kind of design there. So none of this backpack I can fault for being a backpack, because it's wings and a turret, and that's what it's supposed to be. Back of the legs, you've got the yellow that was on the wings, plus it goes through to the inside, which is nice. I don't know, maybe they didn't paint this because it would just be a weird yellow line that you could see reflecting in there, but I would have rather had that on the robot than not have the yellow on the wings, to be perfectly honest. Then you've just got the wing details on the back here, and then thruster feet. He does have a peg hole on the back of his feet, which makes putting things in there for flight mode awkward. I want to say the video that covered that best was probably the Earthrise Seeker review that the Lazy Eyebrow did. If you don't watch him, you should. He's way better than I am. But he pointed out how it's kind of wonky to try and animate this kind of foot style for flight. And that's pretty much it for his looks. We'll go ahead and zoom out here and take a look at his articulation. His head does rotate for transformation if you can figure out how to hide his face in the vehicle modes, because, you know, like I said, people have complained about that. He does get a little bit of the tilts, and then the ball joint has a hinge at the base too, so he can kind of do a little bit of that chicken action. That's blurry because it's catching the shoulder, but yeah, he can bagok, do the chicken, and then you can look up a really nice amount due to that, and if you finagle it, he can look down a bit. It doesn't really help with the downward movement so much, but that is his head. His shoulders are a weird story that I think, oh, I bumped the camera. Just doing all the stuff today. His shoulder is a weird occurrence that people also don't have fun with, and that they go out like this, but in order to rotate them, you have to move this flap out of the way to get forward movement, and then backward movement, even without this in the way, is like non-existent, but this is going to be in the way. So backward movement, even if it could rotate back, was going to be limited either way. So forward is all you really need for him, and outward is all you really need for him. It would have been cool if it could go up higher than 90 degrees. Yeah, that would have been nice on the front. The side I could take or leave. But due to the fact that it wasn't going to be able to move back, they decided on this kind of shoulder system, which I'm sure made it easier to design the transformation for the tank and whatnot. So I'm not going to complain about it. I just know that other people have. You've got a 360 degree at the bicep. It's getting caught on this flap a little bit, so if you move that slightly forward, you've got a free range on that. You've got an elbow. It does kind of lock in a little bit. It's not like a tab, but it like swoops around this corner here, the tan corner, to keep it solid in the alt modes. But he does have an elbow. It goes a little more than 90 degrees. Trying to move this flap out of the way so you can see. He does have a wrist swivel. Mine are kind of loose, but that's okay because I usually don't have his weapons on him. If he wants to use a weapon, you can just like finagle the tank over his shoulder into a pseudo sound wave shoulder cannon like that. So that's generally what I do when I want him to shoot. He just kind of rotates his arm up just far enough to kind of like support that, like he's holding on to it, and just bam, right out of the sky. But I digress. Back to articulation. It's the only reason I would have it in compensation tank mode is for easier access to the shoulder cannon. Now, one thing that kind of upsets me is this is basically a Voyager sized guy with some nice paint and beef at a leader price point, and in the past when we've seen something like that, it's how it had articulated fingers. This guy does not. Originally I was kind of okay with it. I was living with it. I just picked up Jaxus, who is a Voyager sized Voyager with no size issues or hollowness issues or anything like some people might complain about the paint, but we'll get into that when I review him. He has opening fingers, and this guy does not. Someone just commented on a post that I made about it saying it was so he could hold the Matrix, I guess, which is something that apparently happens with the character, because I know almost nothing about him, and that's good and all, but like Blitzwing is a size smaller than he should be. Should have fingers. Moving right along, he does have a waist swivel that is unhindered by the appropriate Blitzwing backpack. No ab articulation to speak of. Backwards on the leg is hindered by the molded in butt flap, which is kind of a bummer. That is not the same as the shoulders. The backpack wouldn't be getting in the way of that regardless, and I think that is kind of terrible and should have been fixed. This should have been shorter or been able to move like the fronts move, so you can get that forward kick action, and then he can go pretty much all the way out to the side. It's hampered a little bit by the shape of his leg. He's a thick leg boy, but they can go out far enough for my purposes. You do have a rotation at the thigh that gets you, it gets you an exploded leg is what it gets you. I've never rotated his legs that far, to be perfectly honest. So yeah, you can go pretty much all the way around, but I feel like it's starting to get a little scrapey in there, so I just turn it the direction you want it to turn instead of doing a full 360, but that's good enough for me. You've got over 90 degrees of bend for knee articulation, and you have a 90-degree ankle tilt, and then the toes and heels can click down for transformation, but they cannot click up past flat, and there is no ankle tiltage forward and back to suit your purposes. So you've got to just use that tilt in the legs to get him planted where you want him to be. But that is it for his articulation. One thing to note about this, it is a thooping thing, so you've either got to have him flat or one leg's got to be out like that. That's something that people tend to complain about, and that is something that I can get behind as far as a complaint goes for certain characters. But since Blitzwing kind of just, for me, stands there looking burly and like he's just going to mess you up, I don't really do a whole lot dynamic with him pose-wise. So the poseability he has suits him as a character, in my opinion. Alright, and that's it for his articulation. We'll go ahead and give him his weapons. Now, the only weapon I generally have him holding, if I have his weapons, is the sword. This is the one mode that I'm okay with the sword being in. And the reason that is just because I actually like the guns stored better than him using them, because you'll put them in here the other way, and the details on the guns fit right around the little fake wheels. so you know you've got it right when it looks like this. Same thing on the other side. And so there you've got his guns, and I like the way that they look coming up over the wings with the turret in the middle better than he does when he holds on to anything. So I just keep him in robot mode with his guns as accessory kind of detailing more than actual accessories for wielding. And there you have Blitzwing. Let's get him in the middle here. I kind of put him off to the side for comparisons like a little early. But there you have Blitzwing in his robot mode, fully transformed with all of his accessories. And he's pretty good there, but we'll go into final thoughts for that. For now, let's go ahead and cut to some comparisons. Alright, and for your core class comparison, here he is with the Legacy core class Skywarp. Here he is with the KO New Age Seeker slightly upscaled mold in the Skywarp flavors for your slightly legend scale. Here he is with the Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Deluxe Class Ironhide for your Deluxe Class scale and your Ironhide flavor of the Ratchet mold. Here he is with the Netflix tape deck version of Soundwave for your Voyager class comparison. So yeah, he's basically Voyager sized, but with a lot more mass. And so that's kind of where some of that leader price point comes from. And here he is with another purple and tan / yellow lad. Here he is with the leader class Beast Wars Megatron figure. And so yeah, he's definitely shorter than leader class, but you know, he's kind of somewhere in between with leader and Voyager in mass. His articulation is pretty good and things like that. So we'll once again we'll kind of discuss that in the final thoughts. But as you can see here, this is kind of what I was getting at earlier, where I was like, oh, I have just enough versions of molds with at least one extra of the mold where I could do size comparisons this way. So that way the character that you're seeing in the alt and robot mode are basically the same figure, but not the same guy, so I don't have to transform them. But it's not like here's a random leader class dinosaur with a random leader class dinosaur that's a robot that's not the same dinosaur. Now you can have one figure and get an idea in either a mode how it's going to size with the guy I'm reviewing. And I think I might have said last but not least with Megatron, and that's false. This is last but not least. Here he is with the Siege Voyager class Springer for a triple changer comparison. They are almost the same height. I want to say Blitzwing might be a smidge taller at the head, but look how much more mass he has than Springer, and he's got the completely painted silver thighs and things like that. So, I mean, overall, I think that he's earning some of that leader class price point, and not that Springer's bad or anything, he just is definitely a Voyager to me, and Blitzwing seems like a little more than that. On a side note here, this last minute comparison that's special to Blitzwing, I'm thinking about doing something like that if I have an applicable figure for like all my reviews. You'll have your standard core to leader comparisons, and then maybe something special on the end. Like I just got a hold of the new Studio Series 86 RC, so if I did a side review for that, it would be with the bar of soap that Kingdom gave us and things like that. So if you would like to see that continue or something to that effect, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. And with that, we'll go ahead and get into the final opinions about our figure here. Alrighty, and at the end of the day, I have some negatives, but they're not too great. The jet mode is a negative. The tank cancer at the bottom of the jet mode is not great, but it's a negative that I can live with. It's not a deal breaker. It bumped the camera. I think that the amount of accessories he comes with is decent, but I feel like he needed something more. Just all the good that I'm about to mention is really great, and it elevates him above Voyager. But I feel like he needed something more and something good to kind of put him at that leader price point. That being said, those are my only real nitpicks. Actually, throw the backward leg articulation on there. That's kind of a nitpick more than a negative. They're all kind of nitpicks actually at this point. I've kind of reasoned away all of my really bad feelings about them. But as I said, when going over Poseability, I just kind of have him standing here. Even like in my comparisons, they all look kind of just static dynamic. They're not like straight up and down boring, but they're not doing anything super dynamic either. But with other figures, I could pull off something like that if I wanted to. With Blitzwing, I can't do it that well, but with Blitzwing, I also don't want to. I want him to just kind of look like this. He looks like he's ready to mess you up, and that's all Blitzwing needs to do. Because if you tried, he would, I feel. But there you have him. The posability is good. The paint is great on this figure, where it's applied. I got some rubbing on the chest. I'm not 100% sure where that rubbing is coming from in the different parts, because they are different components that end up at different places. But I did play with him a lot. He was one of the figures that I would just put in tank mode in my lunchbox and take him to work just to have something to do on my break besides eat some food. So I take him with me and mess around with him. So he's scuffed because he is loved, not because his paint is bad. It's held up pretty much everywhere else that is not generally exposed to the elements of my lunchbox in tank mode, so you know, that's pretty good. His as far as accuracy to the cartoon, I think sometimes it adheres to it to a fault. With that turret in tank mode, or not the turret, the jet fuselage poking out in tank mode, I like the idea of it because it's accurate, but I don't like how they did it per se. But that's not enough to be a negative. Like I said, his biggest negative is that I feel like they didn't include enough for him to be quite leader price from a Voyager, even though he is worth more than a Voyager. Like Voyager around here, at least at the time I bought him, was like 30 bucks. Inflation's going crazy, so it's higher than that now by a few dollars, I think. And a leader was like 50 bucks. So Blitzwing feels like a solid 40. Like one of them Netflix releases that was a Voyager with the extra guys. I feel like if you just put Blitzwing in a box for 40, he'd be more worth it than 50 bucks with what he came with here. And that's pretty much it for him. I don't want to drag this on too long. I believe that my next review is going to be the deluxe Wheeljack from the Bumblebee movie. But if any of you caught my box video that I did, kind of like a comeback, like, hey, I finally have time to shoot again. If any of you watched that and you saw anyone in the video you want to see farther up the line, just go ahead and comment. If I see enough pull towards one character more than the rest of the others, then I'll do him first. Other than that, I think I'll just do it in the order it came out in. So we'll go from oldest to newest. And with that, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Alright, well, I decided to go back and see if there's anything else in this box that could justify him being worth the extra 10 bucks for a leader class. There is something else in here. I want to say it's probably just the instructions in the paper, so we'll go ahead and dump it out. Yep, instructions in paper. Oh, what are these? Oh, right, useless box filler. Throw them back in the box and throw the box away. I think that's what we're going to do with